he said he just looked up and said, God help Adina. Because I know if 16 bullets hit my little old 160-pound kid, it had to have been brutal.
So Brad was shot 16 times.
San Diego 911 emergency. You need to come right away. There's a man with a gun and it's loaded. Receiving emergency signal from 4 George 1141. We've got a white female down. We need paramedics code please. All available units will code that way.
Welcome to the De-Escalation Conversations Podcast. If you have not figured this out, we are not doing a normal Zoom interview. I'm here with this beautiful lady, and we are in Indianapolis, Indiana at the CIT Crisis Intervention Team International Conference. It is August 2024, and Adina Peyton, who, folks, let me tell you something. I reflect back over all the episodes that we've done, and this is the start, kind of the kickoff of season 2. And I do believe this is going to be one of our most impactful episodes ever. Adina is going to be sharing some things with you that I'm just going to tell you right now. Grab a box of Kleenex and grab your pom-poms, because you're going to be a cheerleader at the same time. Adina Peyton, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, Adina is here because she received a very, very special award today. And like with most awards, it didn't just happen because of something you did last week. This has been something that has been going on for a number of years. You have worked your cute little butt off doing a lot of work that has impacted a lot of people. And even a Speaker of the House in Alabama even complimented her on how much she's moved the needle for the safety of law enforcement, for the safety of the community. So we're going to be talking about that today. So, Adina, tell us about the award first. I want to talk about that, because this is a pretty cool award.
Well, I'm excited about that part, but it's the CIT Advocate Award.
CIT Advocate Award. So tell me what the criteria is for that.
Well, it's someone in the community that has taken efforts to further the cause of CIT training and CIT intervention.
Very good. Yeah. Which again keeps officers safe and keeps the community safe. Let's flash back to a few years back, when, if you were to say when my work toward this whole concept of CIT and de-escalation and use of force, go back as far as you want and share with us, if you would, your story, because it's a compelling story.
Well, I was working for the Department of Defense, and COVID, it was 2020, so I was at home teaching the military via Zoom, the classes. And my son, who was 41, had come home for the weekend from a sober living facility. He had suffered with drugs and alcohol throughout his life, as I had, but I had been sober for a while, a pretty good while by then. And he had come home and he was very depressed that weekend. And so that Monday, he didn't go back to the sober living facility, and I was very concerned about that. And the whole day he was manic, and I made him leave my house, and he went down the street and crawled on top of Ted's barbecue.
And this is in Huntsville, Alabama?
Huntsville, Alabama.
Okay.
In 5 Points area. And someone called 911. And what I didn't know as I was sleeping is that the neighborhood had been cordoned off and news crews were there, and it led to a 3.5-hour standoff with the police.
Well, while your son, and what's your son's name?
Brad Pugh.
Brad was on the roof of the barbecue place for 3.5 hours. That's a long time to be on a roof. And what time of day was this?
It started around 9:30 at night.
Okay.
It's really cold that night too, on November 16th. And then it ended around 1:30, 2 o'clock.
So while he's up on the roof, there were some officers that were talking to him to try and get him to come down. Did he have any weapons?
He had an unloaded pistol.
An unloaded pistol. And was he threatening himself or anybody else? Where was the pistol?
I think in the
Waistband area? Okay. So he had an unloaded pistol, and so the officers were concerned about him having a weapon, along with him being up on the roof and however he was acting. So at some point, early in the morning hours of the 17th, he came down from the roof. What got him to come down?
I was told that he came down for cigarettes.
Okay.
So he had, I guess, maybe thought the better of a bad result, and he was maybe buying a little more time to think about it. By that point, I had been woken up by 2 law enforcement, but when I told them that he had, I had asked him to leave, they asked me not to come down there.
Right.
So I feel pretty bad about that part.
Well, sure, and at the same time, the potential, anytime we're involving family members, there's dynamics that you don't know what might happen. There might be a flare-up when you think it's going to do some good, and all of a sudden, mom or dad, brother, sister, son, daughter is saying something completely unexpected, and so because of that earlier conflict where you had him leave, as a law enforcement officer for 30 years, I can understand their hesitancy to do that. But at the same time, for you, and I think this is important for people to understand, all the different aspects of the story, for you, that's got to weigh heavy on your mind that you weren't allowed to go down there.
It does. And the way that I deal with that now is I see the bigger plan. I'm able to accept that, because I see what has happened as a result of that night. It's been incredible.
In what way? Tell me more about that.
Well, I was very naive when this happened, and right after it happened, I went to city council. I'd never been to city council, and I gave them a speech about, how we needed to change something. Something went wrong, and we needed to fix it. And, I invited them to the funeral, and, the media was covering it. And so.
And when you say you went right after, this is 2 days after.
2 days after.
So they happened to have a city council meeting.
Just happened.
Just normal.
And I would look at people that would go to city council as troublemakers. That's just, it's kind of like judgmental. But I'm like, oh my God, I'm at city council.
2 days after your son has died, as a result of, when we're going to tell Adina's going to tell us the rest of the story about what happened with her son, because he just didn't come down for cigarettes and then die. There was a lot that happened in between. And just 2 days after this tragedy, after losing your 41-year-old son, you went to city council to say, hey, we need to change some things about how things are being done. What was the reception that you got from them?
Well, they were surprised that I was there. I didn't know anybody but the mayor. But it was almost a spiritual thing. Like, as soon as they told me Brad was gone, my heart started beating like really hard. And I knew that I had a mission to do. And I'm not one that, comes up with woo type stuff, but I just knew that something needed to happen. Something needed to change. Something wasn't copacetic. So I thought maybe I just needed to go down there and offer my assistance, if you will. And it was a couple days later, I realized nobody wanted my assistance.
You felt rejected.
I was very upset then, because I knew that my intent was pure. I knew my son was gone. And so I was, people, when your child dies, instead of coming toward you, most of them go away from you. And because this was a shooting by the police, nobody wanted to know me. And so
Did you feel abandoned?
it was worse than that, because I had lived a life of needing validation. And so now I'm like a social,
Like a social butterfly?
No, I used to be a
Used to be.
social butterfly. What's the
But
social?
then after your son is gone,
Nobody would talk to me. I mean, I couldn't even go to the grocery store because people would turn and whisper about me. And it was very hurtful the way that society treated me. But I understand it, because I probably treated people that way that were in the public. It's like when somebody gets in trouble, people just bail on them.
right?
So
And yet you were on the flip side of this. You were on the receiving end of the whispers and the sideways glances, and worse than abandonment. Wow.
Well, I think because for me, the only way I could get through anything is to see my part in it. So I had to spiritually try to ask God, what are you trying to teach me? Like, what is it? How can all this work together for good? I mean, and believe me, I just held on for a bit, because I was sober in a 12-step recovery program. And in that period of time, I didn't think they showed up as needed. So I was trying to do the right thing without any support. Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to be pitiful, but
no. I'm saying
this
it's
is,
not
I mean,
pitiful
this
at
is
all. It's not
validating.
Well, what's amazing about you sharing this is that you're giving people a framework to understand not just what you went through, but there's a lot of our listeners that know people that have lost kids. And some of our listeners, because this is just the way the universe works, are going to listen to this podcast and then be faced in this same type of situation where they are now the person who is either being drawn to or turning away from somebody who's in need. And what you're doing is you're giving them the ability to go, hey, okay, I understand what you went through in this situation. You're trying to do good. You're going to the city council going, hey, let's shift some things. And yet you're the pariah. You're the one that people are talking about and whispering about and sideways glancing. And so folks get to understand and take a look at what you might use as a snap judgment, as a snap reaction. You now have a different lens to look through.
That was great. That was good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's step back just a little bit. Brad came off the roof for cigarettes, and that was a suggestion by one of the officers on the scene, right? Come down, we'll give you a smoke. Have you heard what their plan was when he came down for the cigarettes?
Well, they beanbagged him, and I guess it either missed him or grazed him. Then they beanbagged him again, and it didn't do anything. So by that point, I'm sure, I mean, I don't know because I've never seen the body cam, but I would imagine at that point he had to run. It was like, and so he ran.
Okay. So I want to pause you there for just a second, because we talk a lot about the fear response and Amy, the amygdala, kicking in. And it's fight, flight, or freeze. Now, there's some other F's that we can throw in there, but those are the big three: fight, flight, or freeze. So what Brad did was a natural survival instinct. And when we talk about de-escalation, you have to understand that anytime you're trying to take somebody into custody, they're in survival state, they're generally going to go into one of those three responses: fight, flight, or freeze. So Brad ran. And there was a foot pursuit. And there were how many shots fired at Brad?
Well, there were 7 officers.
Okay.
The next day when I comb the neighborhood by myself to interview people, there was the man whose house was hit. They had like a metal detector out there, and to get all the bullets up.
So their house was hit, and they're out there picking up bullets. Like you go to the beach and look for like somebody's lost ring or watch. Now, why is it that you're in, I don't mean this in a bad way.
That's okay.
What was you say you're going out, you're interviewing people. Were you getting any information at all from the police department or anywhere else?
No.
So you don't have any information. You know your son is dead.
Well, the neighbors, people started, after the fact, when it had been on the news. Like it had to have been humiliating for him, but it was on all the news stations. I just didn't have the TV on.
Well, he gave him 3.5 hours to stage up.
Yeah, and people are fascinated with tragedy.
Yeah. Sure.
And so, I was hearing things from the neighbors because it was pretty dramatic. Like it just kept going. The bullets kept going. And so
there was multiple scenes, correct? Multiple times that he was shot at or shot.
Well, I think putting it together with what I can put together, it was like an arc, like I think. And there were probably a lot of new people. It was the end of a shift when all this started happening. They were probably tired. It was cold, and whatever set off the first one, it just kept going. And then I think it went again.
Okay.
So I try to not focus on that part.
Sure.
Because I wanted to know what happened. I could never get that. So God kind of switched my vision at 9 months in to see how they saw it. And when I realized, oh my God, those young 7 officers, the head of HIMSI went to church with me, and he was there, and he said he just looked up and said, God help Adina. Because I know if 16 bullets hit my little old 160-pound kid, it had to have been brutal.
So Brad was shot 16 times. And I want to pause you again for just a moment, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I want you to reflect back over what Adina just described. 9 months in, God spoke to her to give her a different framework, and she began to look through. This is where we talk about perspective and perception. Her perception was, and then she began to look at the perspective of the officers. That takes a tremendous amount of inner strength to be able to do that. Especially
it was powered by, you hear people, football players, it's God. There's no way I could have done that. I was sitting at the red light and I could see where he died, because I would jog up there and just pray, in the morning. It was just like that. And I'm like, oh my God, they're traumatized and they're having to go back to work the next day. Mental illness is too big for me to tackle because I'm in recovery. But not first responders. I can, if I could help them, that would help the entire community and their families and their children's,
And this was the realization you had at that 9-month mark? Wow. So what happened after that?
Well, this guy that I had taught in the military, an African prince, he called me up and he flew to Huntsville and he said, you've got to quit fighting, you're dying. Like, you're just not the same person. He said, you're going to start a nonprofit and I'm going to do your logo from Africa. And I said, I'm not starting a nonprofit for the police. I don't even check my office email. And then one little thing at a time started happening. And I was like, okay. And then, it started taking shape. And then Judge Frank Barger talked with me. And he said, the only thing I would suggest is opening it up to more than just law enforcement, do firefighters and HIMSS and all. So I said, okay. And my idea was to create a fund, because I taught military and I know what happens, where first responders can go get mental health help, totally private, not under their insurance or any of that, and bill us, and that be it. So there would be no reprisal, there would be no financial burden, up to like $1,000 a first responder. And then my other thing was CIT training. We didn't have any CIT trained officers that night.
Oh.
And so I'm like, no, we're going to do CIT. And so CIT got rolling in Huntsville pretty quick at that point. But in a million years, I did not see the miracles that have happened as a result of this nonprofit.
Can you give us some examples of those miracles?
Well,
Love to
this
hear
year, we sent 3 officers, I guess you would say officers, from 2 different cities, one of them being from the police department
Okay, in Huntsville.
that shot,
Okay.
that shot Brad, because it took a long time for them to trust me. So, the culture is us against them. And I'm like, no, it was never like that. People have to not be afraid. If I'm afraid, I'm not going to let you in. So I have the Attorney General came to our fundraiser, the mayor, the attorney that shut me down. And it's tough, some days I'm like, I miss Brad so much, but he would be thrilled. In his prayer journal, he had prayed for Huntsville Police Department.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's not often that a family member of someone who's killed by the police 2 days after, and even within that first year, is saying, I want to be able to help you the officers, you the police department, in shifting things so that we can help prevent your officers from being traumatized, your officers from having to go through. And you don't know this about me, but in my 30 years in law enforcement, I was involved in 2 fatal officer-involved shootings. I know what it is to take somebody's life. And I know how the family members reacted. And in the first one, the mother was at the scene the next day, and it was not pretty. The second one, the family actually went on TV and thanked me because they were scared. And he was actually a suspect in his brother's death and had threatened other family members. So I've been on both ends of that spectrum of family being thank you, and which is pretty darn rare, and the other end of the spectrum. So the officers not knowing what to. I no doubt you're absolutely right. You kept trying. Again, a framework, especially for law enforcement officers. When you have family, don't just immediately suspect the worst. Because had you gotten some information about what happened, had you, whatever they would be able to say at different times, they can give more and more information as time goes on in the investigation, the more pieces come together. If someone had been able to give you answers, that would have, I'm sure, taken a lot of stress off your plate, right? Just having information about things.
Yeah, that's been a problem. And I understand. See, I try hard to understand why things happen. Then it's almost like, okay, if I can just get the information, I can rest. But if it had played out any different, I might have had a big money settlement and been drunk and miserable. So,
Yeah.
But I've learned, if you keep your eye on the prize, like this was not a quick fix. It has been 4 years of having to keep convincing, keep being consistent. I hate being consistent. Like, I just want to have life back again. but just to keep showing, like I should have been as a parent, just be consistent, just keep doing the right thing, keep doing the right thing. Sooner or later, hopefully, people go, well, we had a city council lady, her last night in office, she stood up and on record said she did exactly what she told us she was going to do. She really was for the city. And that, that kind of helped me.
In what way?
Well, when nobody is for you, it's pretty tough. Like, what God showed me in this is that He is enough, because that's all I had. Like, thanks God, but I wanted a few buds, I wanted some peeps
A little
behind
more
me.
support.
Yeah, just, well, I needed that. I depended on people. I thought that I had to know the powerful people to make a change. I thought because I had been a high school dropout, I couldn't make a difference. I was too old. I was 58. I can't make a difference. I'm like, we blew that out of the water. So there are just a lot of things to share with people now that can help them not feel powerless.
That's awesome. So you had this shift in perspective. God gave you strength to be able to make this shift, and you set out and you created a nonprofit organization.
Can't believe it. Yeah.
Wow.
I know
A
I
high
said
school
that.
dropout, history of substance problems, and you create a nonprofit. And tell us about what this nonprofit's mission is.
Well, it's called Grammy, Getting Real About Mental Illness. And it's got a little green dragonfly. So we have three things. Destigmatize mental illness. That means people like me.
Destigmatize it, so take the stigma away from it, right?
Yeah, because when Brad was sick, nobody talked, they're embarrassed of their children having an issue.
Yeah.
So people don't talk about it. Then the second thing is the fund, so that any first responder who's had any kind of trauma can get help without anybody knowing, without any financial burden to their family. And the third one is advocate for crisis intervention training. Because what happened in our city is it was a police officer after police officer getting in trouble. And crisis intervention really protects the police. It really does, because
It does.
you do not want to be on the news. And so, police don't make enough money to be in the danger they're in. I love today what we talked about. So, crisis intervention training is going to get it to a point where they're not going to be answering those questions in an officer-involved shooting. And we have had a lot of victories in Huntsville since this time, because every time there's a barricade or anybody in a standoff, I just feel sick. I just sit there and wait until and most of the time, they're transported to either the hospital or the jail without incident. That's a victory.
Yeah, that's a huge
Losing a
victory.
child is rough. It's pretty rough. Losing one the way I did with nobody wanting to talk to you, it's a little bit harder.
Yeah, our kids are not supposed to die before we do. It's not the way it's supposed to work.
Post-twos.
What's that?
Those post-twos.
Supposed to's, yeah.
Post-two.
Post-two,
Yeah,
post-two.
post-twos.
So your nonprofit sends folks to be trained and provides the mental health treatment that when they're going through a rough time, that they can get the help they need. So you're helping on the mental health on both sides of that.
Well, we're providing the funding. See, I'm not a mental health professional.
Right, but the ability for them to go get the help.
Yeah. And
it's amazing.
because I started it alone, and we just had this huge event, and I think 6 of us pulled it off where the Attorney General came. I've just not had the resources. I just took my little paycheck and I rolled Grammy out like we'd been there all along, because I watched. I mean, I got I got the posters so we could go. My goal was to have the mayor start a 10K race with Brad's name on it. That was my goal. And the other night I just told him, I'm like, can you believe tonight? I mean, it was like a celebration that had come full circle.
That happened that night.
Yeah, I mean,
10K race?
No, but
Okay.
that's all I wanted. I wasn't
Okay.
planning on having a gala every year and the Attorney General coming. I was just like, you're going to remember my son, and the mayor's going to open the race, and like
Gotcha.
little bitty goals.
Yeah.
Because I was a little bitty thinker. And then after the doors started opening, I'm like, hey, the only thing holding me back is my fear.
Wow.
Yeah. And so,
How did you shift that? If you recognize that it's your fear holding back, how do you shift that so your fear is not holding you back? Because that's an incredible framework.
there is this one time you have to jump, like when I got sober, when I just walked into a meeting. Nobody can do that for you. Like, there's a time where when I went to city council, the first time, it was, everybody's going to look, play not. When I realized they weren't, I couldn't believe I had the strength to walk. I mean, there was one night they were doodling on paper something, and I yelled out, you're going to listen to me or something. I mean, the police came out of the woodwork. It was scary for everybody. And we laughed about that the other night. He goes, what was I doing, making notes? I said, yes, sir, I think you were. But I don't know how to say it. It was almost like I just said, help me. And I did it. And it was my kid's life.
Yeah.
I think that's what did it.
Yeah.
Because there's a million things I didn't have the courage to do, like be single, I'm like, I can't do that. I don't know how to, and I can't do this. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, if I did that, I could probably do that. And then it gets
powerful.
exciting. It
That's
gets pretty
powerful.
good.
John, this win leads me to have the strength to try this next unimaginable task. Wow.
That's why I want to coach, because like I'm a very blue collar professor. I tell stories to represent something, like I worked at the chicken plant for 3 days when I had Brad because we were broke. And I used that for the learning curve. Like I got pretty good at deboning chickens. But I don't know. I just think there's a lot of people that are stuck and they don't, they're just living that way. And it could be so much bigger.
Very powerful. They're stuck and they're living that way. They're living, I call it living by default, not by design. And they're stuck. And it doesn't have to be that way. I can't think of a better way to bring this episode to a close. Adina, thank you for being here. Thank you for opening your heart. Thank you for the grace of your time. We honor your time. It's been a true honor.
Thank you.
Folks, we're going to put information about Adina's nonprofit in our show notes. So you'll be able to reach out to her. Her contact information will be there. Take a look at it. Next time you give, consider Adina. Next time you give, consider IDEA. We've got a lot of resources for you at our website, theidea.world. It's not .com, .org, or any of those. It's .world. I know it's unusual, but we're unusual in a good way. Until next time, stay safe. You found a lot of great value in this episode of the De-Escalation Conversations podcast. Please be sure to go to our website, theidea.world, THEIDEA.world. On that website, just click on the link that resonates with you most. If you're a K-12 educator, if you're a firefighter, medical services, law enforcement, flight attendants, whatever industry you're in, we have specialized training for you. So check that training out, because literally it can save your life, it can save your relationship, it can save your career. So check out theidea.world. I'll look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. This is Kerry Mensior, and thanks for watching this episode of the De-Escalation Conversations Podcast. I hope you got some great insights that you can use right away. But don't stop here. Click that video link above and keep the momentum going with another powerful episode. And hey, if you haven't already, please hit that like button and the subscribe bell so you never miss an episode. New strategies, new stories, and new ways to connect coming your way every week. See you in the next episode.